Well, good morning as we're sitting here at LTV on this beautiful morning, Friday morning, October 18th, year 2024, here with the Hello Hello Show. And my name is Haim Mizrahi, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello Show that's been on the air since 1980. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and then, of course, the likes of you out there that make it your business to enhance and fortify this concept as it stretches its meanings and flexes its muscles throughout the hours of the day and the days of the week and the weeks of the months and the months of the years, and piles up to become something extremely meaningful. And especially in the face of the kind of social, religious, political background that this world is enhancing and highlighting lately, we should really be very um, um, careful about preserving and improving the concept of public access. And I think we're doing a great job. If you think about it throughout in one capacity or another throughout the communities of the United States or America, you have public access TVs and radio, uh, and people are taking advantage of it to an extent where it really prepares a person to step up to the plate, to become more aware of his immediate surrounding. I mean, there are a lot of people that are involved in many things that their communities has to offer, but still they don't. But they don't. They're not as complete as they should be in terms of how much more it's possible to achieve and to encourage. And the issues. I mean, it doesn't have to be a disaster for us to suddenly wake up and say, "Okay, what is it that we can do?" Um, every reason is a good reason, and every excuse is a good excuse to find ourselves in the thick of it, in the center of it, and something that will result in expressing oneself. And I guess again, the way I can weigh is by seeing what's happening nationally, and this concept is really thriving across our country, and 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 we should be happy indeed that that's taking place. Of course, it also goes hand in hand with the idea that art can really heal, and if I want to use a different word, I would say art really introduces itself all over again every day to the ones that are ready to engage in what it really means to utilize um, artistic incentives to become something as real as uh, one deciding to put, the time and the commitment of intent and hard work into the into the concept that eventually yields in the sense of a painting or a poem or a musical instrument or musical composition. I uh, I was trying to pay attention uh, to the poetry deniers. you know, uh, I don't think I'm going to try and explain myself about what poetry deniers are all about. So I have great points of references to learn from and to fall back to. Steve Sedering, this community um, enjoyed the presence of Steve Sedering on planet Earth for at least 3 decades. I think she's already gone about 10, 15 years. She passed away very young. I had the privilege to spend time with her and to digest her emphasis about she used to tell me, take me with you. Take me with you on a walk. Reach for my hand and take me. And never think that it's too much as far as being tedious and detail oriented. I want you to take me through the entire composition of the scenario that you want to share, to introduce, to inform people. This is it. This is what it is. And I had such a hard time understanding that simple concept of take me together with you to join you in the walk that you are actually engaged in and finding yourself living it every day. Um, and I remember when I took the workshop with David Ignatov, another poet, and this is things I want to share with you because it really applies to everything. It applies to your workplace, it applies your home, it applies about your family, kids and wife, it applies about your friends, but just everything stretches through whatever it is that you find yourself engaged in during the day. Um, so David Ignatov had a famous poem about a bagel or something like that. So I remember at the beginning I thought it was like almost, I hate to use the word pathetic, but I felt like this is a pathetic poem. But that was before I discovered the magic, before I realized, wow, indeed, I had no clue about the implications of the indeed. I had no time to figure things out to be impressed. But when I did, suddenly the bagel poem was a sacred point of reference for people like myself, where you would want to say, I was walking down the road in an early, somewhat chilly afternoon and going through the famous notions of the place that I lived in for so long, my neighborhood, and here's the bagel store, and you stand out there and you don't want to go in because you're not so sure you want to eat anything, but something about the bagel appeals to you, and you stand there for about 5 minutes, interacting and reflecting between the inside and the outside, between the inside and the outside, while you're outside observing inside, and the outside to the inside while you outside or inside observing whatever is happening on the other end. The storytelling build up in that poem was nothing less than exquisite. And it was only about a poem and it was only about the bagel and what it means to us in our lives. And when I say that, I actually find it, it sounds a little funny to think that suddenly the idea of a bagel can be important and can be portrayed in a whole uh, poem. Steve Sedgwick used to tell me, take me on a walk with you. And the walk is the poem, obviously, or the poem to become. So, a few things. I never thought that keeping company while I'm taking my walk, meaning creating my creations, is a good idea. It feels good. And secondly, the level of awkwardness. Why would I want to bring someone so close to share and maybe ending up interfering? Well, why do I need to contemplate about scenarios that might happen that can slow me down or serve as obstacles when I don't need them to begin with? When I need to learn the lesson really and uh, and implement instantly, so that will never happen again. Um, um, Usually the solution is usually close by when it comes to close by to just as much as you have an, an ability to explain what the problem is, what the difficulty is, what the obstacle is all about, what's these feelings that I feel that I don't want to feel, and these feelings that I ought to feel that I cannot feel, things like that. Um, all associated with the fact that you need to take someone on a walk, and that's the walk that we're talking about. That can be all the way from riding through scratching the surface with sharp objects and using semi-transparent pigments and and basic glue onto fabric on wood and mixed media, roughness, texture, build up of layers and coats and meaning and scenarios and the color compositions that accompany every block of description, the beauty of grammar and the alphabet, and then bringing into the equation other languages that you have some clue about, and just celebrating between dressing and undressing, erecting and allowing to cave in. Um, I wasn't able to relate to that. A, that it is simple, and B, what is it that makes it simple? And C, that indeed now I can start working because I got it. Once you got it, there's no way you're not going to do it. You don't, and there's no way you're not going to do it well. There's no way you're not going to really pay attention and really focus and really give it everything you can. Just no way. So I used to go back and forth with Steve Sedering. She was a force to be reckoned with, a playwright, a director, a musician, an artist, a writer, exquisite writer, and so much more. So I used to go back and forth and I used to say, Steve, I really have so much difficulty with trying to understand where I stand and how is it what is it that I need to do or go about in order to allow myself the just basic feeling of being adamant about and just doing it and saying nothing much and just doing it. In my case, would be painting. Uh, so I felt like every time I approached it, I needed to ask more s- specific questions or questions in a more of a specific fashion. Like I needed to help her to be able to answer me almost immediately. Usually, these are the greatest answers, the most accurate, those that just come and boom, done. And and she used to say, imagine the possibility that you won't be able to do without. So she was trying to give me an indication that actually taking someone with me on a walk, while it's almost like the live action period of the execution of whatever medium you're engaged in, artistically speaking, of course. uh, so you're having difficulty as you trying to make sense of it all and to make it happen, allow it to happen, hope for it to happen, and then quickly enough realizing that you can actually cannot do without. Suddenly you need to know that you're going to take a walk through, whether you take yourself on a walk, maybe you allow another person to join you, but just the whole concept of having company while you're, and that interferes with the natural sacredness is like a treasure to every artist as he and she are going about their merry, wonderful, inspired way to create all these beautiful things that eventually we're all going to admire and look up to and benefit from. So I want to say, yes, but of course, why should I feel this way? Why should I allow these obstacles to thrive within me, and to gain excuses to show up over and over again. Um, so Steve told me, imagine that you cannot do without. Start from there. Start from the sensation that you're supposed to get after all your work is done, all the achievements are in place, all the implementation and the application of lesson learned and whatnot over with, it, you know, um, achieved and put aside completely, like a whole package ready to go. Um, it was amazing how it was so helpful that you realize simplicity by way of tricking yourself to step 3 or 4 steps forward. Usually, you would hesitate to take one because you know how major these things are. At least the potential change that it's going to trigger, and therefore, suddenly you find yourself with a need for much more energy, more tools than you ever thought you would need. But now you know better. You have what it takes. I mean, I am ready. I'm ready. That means I need the brushes. I don't have four. I have 20 in front of me. Yes, I need white base color, full pigmented, and all the degrees of transparency, working with the liquid and pigment already in front of me. No big deal. No big deal. There's no ceremony. There's no orchestra playing music. There's no introduction. There's no celebration. There's no, oh, let's have a drink. There's no, oh, we have a special menu for lunch today. There's nothing. There's everything business as usual, intense reality, uh, uh, wheeling and dealing vis-a-vis the uh, the ability of that strength that you know you have. And then when you're in the game, you reflect that feeling, and that reflection is actually a reflection of strength, of power. And that is being picked up by other people who know you, people who don't know you, people who know you just enough to say that they know you, and people who doesn't know you at all, never met you, but they feel you immediately. They sense, they sense this person put the hours. He or she, they put the hours. It's amazing how before I started painting here in the Hamptons, it was all about me preparing myself every weekend. It used to be, from the early 80s to the early 2000s, about 20 years, it was a big deal for people to go and attend art exhibitions. It was a big deal. There were like 5, 6 locations, galleries, that it was just, you know what to expect. You dress, whether you have a date or not, you go, you enjoy, you everything happens. You go to dinner with company, without, and by 8, 9 o'clock, you consider this evening as a successful evening. And then whether you're alone, whether with company, you reflect about what you just saw. And it didn't have to be, and that's actually the most interesting thing. It didn't have to be that. It did not have to be the most exquisite art for to make me feel the way I used to feel. So it was a big deal. It was a big deal. And I was a part of it. Every weekend, I spruce myself and make it feel a special day. Saturdays, going here, going there. And I remember that because I knew so little about art, not that I know so much about art now. I know my own experience is incredible, but not really official, educational, pinpointed material information that I know much about. Let's just say I know enough for what I need to know and for what I need to do. And there's always room to grow and to know more and to learn more. But I used to judge, supposedly, just with the quotation marks, um, people on how I should feel towards them. And when I observed their art, and I was trying to put my feelings and my observations, my realizations in order in order to establish an opinion about this person, especially these people that I know I'm going to see them here and there outside of this equation of art exhibitions. And I remember a lot of people actually were hardworking individual. It was so evident in their work, the volume, the quality, the change, constant change, the richness of intent, the title. Uh, Titles meant something once. Today it's like fading away, kind of. You can do with, you can do without. Today you can do without a lot of things that maybe 20 years it will be like, really? No, you cannot do without. You cannot do. There's a code of conduct people used to follow. It was, well, all these things really helped the artist when they went back to their studios and all this. It was like, okay, I need to think really hard because if I'm going to think hard right now, immediately, when everything is fresh in my head and my heart, I would end up making a fool of myself. Guaranteed. Next interaction, next week, just as soon as next week, the following week, you want to come across as someone who changed. And you want to come across as someone who's changed that is noticeable that he or she changed, that I changed. That people will say something's different about you. And you can say, even without saying, sure is definitely. I am. Yes. You hear yourself say to yourself, of course I am. This person noticed. That's good. You don't have to inform the other person that you know, that you're aware but, and think about it. If you go like 30, 40 weeks out of the year to exhibitions, um, and he won't be able to show for growth, for innovation, for intensity, for volume. I mean, really? So I used to look up to those. Let's say I would see them here and there, and I would immediately in my head, I would get the sensation, this person, of course, you remember the last exhibition you went, you showed, you enjoyed and learned a lot about the person from his paintings, and you remember that you thought that this guy, he's got what it takes because the paintings are telling you about the journey. The paintings are speaking in the name on the behalf of this individual. And what you read and what you observe is intense. There is no way you will ever find yourself to think that this individual is up to no good. That immediate interaction and immediate sparks from the uh, the last encounter you had with that person, artistically speaking. You remember deeply invested paintings. You realized a demeanor of a person that goes hand in hand with the kind of art that he or she create. And your realization, that instant first realization uh, about the individual told you the story that you can relate to. Suddenly, this person is familiar because his life, his artistic journey is familiar. It has so many ingredients that you use in your own kind of ins and outs and mornings and nights. Uh, so I have a feeling that I did that so much for others. That means I had respect towards people, not necessarily by doing something, but by managing not to do something. Something like that. I'm trying to be simple and very raw about explaining that. So I really gave a lot of respect by managing not to disrespect. I mean, that should make sense. In order not to disrespect, I have to respect. I have to keep busy respecting and looking up to these people, giving them the light of day, recognition, and and being able to say something to the artist that the artist will turn and pay attention to you. because he or she will realize you know what you're talking about. And what did that mean? It meant that you must have observed and learned and examined the art of that person. It takes some doing. The artist will notice and make you his friend or her friend. Would love to make you her friend or his friend because they know they're dealing with a person who can think, who can feel, and thinks and feels, and also maybe when the time comes and you're going to pick up a brush, they will have a lot to say about you. And for the most part, good stuff. They can always say, I hate his art, but I can tell you, his work ethics is second to none. And I have full confidence in him that from this nothingness that we experience today, something absolutely great will erupt and come to life. Yes, fine. I'll judge you. No, I'll place an opinion if you want me to. Before you become, I'll come in as if you've already completely accomplished, and I will make up my own observation, declaration, news release of certain type. Send it forth and let the world know that the potential is what it is that they need to pay attention to, not to your description of how incapable this individual today, which is also a part of the equation of growth. So when the time came, I realized that I've already achieved something that I already had. It's just that by achieving it, I mean I enhanced it, I upgraded it, and it's where it's supposed to be. I don't think more or less about it than what it is, only than what it is. And I, and so sometimes I have encounters with people where they really think the world of me. Let's say, okay, really. Yeah, let's say people come and approach you and tell you that last art show of yours was very impressive. I really liked it. So now there's just like now there's greatness in the air. There's a chance, an opportunity for you to take it forward, with this person because they don't only mean what they say, they understand what what they say that it's what it's all about that they say that which they say they know what it's all about and they know the details, so that means you can get into a conversation, and I prove to myself that I indeed arrived to the conclusion that indeed potentially it's the greatest conversations you can have when someone approaches you and tells you that poem, still remember that poem that you wrote 20 years ago. You read it to us there, Canyon's bookstore in Sag Harbor. And it was the sailboat that you have in your mind that sails to distances that belong to your forefathers. You know? So sometimes you come to a point and you say, you said you once wrote and read this poem and it was um, about the undecided genetic particle that floats on some kind of a godly liquid. Uh, um, you know, but right there's a potential for 1 hour head interaction, heart interaction, spirit interaction. Yes, indeed. Even after 20 years, they can ask, so what did you really mean by saying that? Well, I said, you know what? Once someone asked and I said, you know what? It's just like when God created Adam and he was ready to release Adam into the history of mankind and start with Garden of Eden, start the story. And he was just about to do it, and then he took another look at this wonderful, perfect creature that he created, perfect in the eyes of God, perfect also. And he decided to keep Adam next to him for a while longer to enjoy and indulge and maybe even learn about his own creation and about the potential nature that will form the history of mankind. And they had those dialogues. God had dialogues with Adam before Adam was released. Unplanned dialogues. That was my answer to the guy that asked me about the poem that he heard 20 years before that. And what did I really mean? So it's just like saying that. And then when he released Adam into the equation of what Garden of Eden was, it was actually the beginning of the value of head games that came about to become a like a warning mechanism system to help you be preemptive and take care of yourself and be careful and watch your steps just because. So when you hear this noises that coming into your ears and you think that you're going to have like, God forbid, maybe you're having like a brain tumor or something, and you know how they give it so many interpretations and names. If you, God forbid, hear those buzzing in your ears and you always think, is it dementia? Is it cancer? Is it, things like that. But these are the signals from the ancient dialogue that God had with the unplanned dialogues, I have to add, that God had with Adam before he released him to the garden and all that. Perfectly positive by nature. But in the same token, that buzz and scream and squeeze that comes from the future and penetrates through one ear and goes through the other and gives you a sensation that you're just about to die because only disastrous things can make you feel like that. Nothing good can make you feel like that. But that's, of course, premature and trigger happy. And you can get yourself in trouble if you think this way. You can think this way maybe after you thought about it long enough to get to afford to be able to afford to think about it this way. So what do we have? That ancient dialogue with God and Adam actually helped us add a pretty chunky layer of understandings, otherwise would have been completely compromised if God was to decide to say, okay, I have a plan, I'm going to follow the plan. And the plan means I'm done with creating Adam. Now it's time to go to the garden. So anyway, so now we have in our hands a tool that is philosophical. That means in the heart of religion, something philosophical come to life, and therefore we're allowed to deal with philosophy and to practice philosophy without going against what religion suggests or promotes. Yeah, that's a biggie. That's a hugey. And for example, in my case, I said everything that my imagination allows me to think about and to supposedly use as a tool in order to get to where I need to get creatively as an artist, as a human being, as a person, as a father, as a husband, as a member of the community, as a citizen of a country, and things like that, all over across the spectrum. So I want to A, be ready, B, be willing, C, being observant, regardless of what the circumstances are, regardless of what this calculation supposedly in place are all about, regardless, because it's a must and it's common practice, and that's what you do. So now I find myself, thank God for me, I didn't have to go through the period of contemplations because everything was a surprise to me. So I skipped a lot of things because taking the kind of journey that I took uh, uh, did not have certain things as uh, prerequisites, as quali- uh, points of qualifications, things like that. That let me think, and I need more material, more information about you, type of thing. That doesn't exist. That's just like so. Now it allows us to be philosophers and to indulge and to enhance and to take it as far as we can. So as everything that my imagination allows me to do, to feel, to think, I will definitely check it out. And I will definitely get to the bottom of what its nature is all about if I can at all. And then, of course, try and realize how it is that I'm going to benefit from it, and which I know for sure I'm going to benefit from. The goodwill in place comes in handy because, especially when you change, you work hard, but when you change, when changes happens, it's really enhancing that the whole thing is kind of a little bit kind of you really need to be ready for it. Goodwill is something that so crucial in those moments because you want to continue the tranquil um, uh, fluidity. I don't know if it's a word of the situation. You wanted to come across as if it seems like it's just another another day, like any other day, kind of thing. But intense things happen. But it's like any other day. That's where you want to be. That's where I am, where I want to be. That's how I plan and how I prepare myself. It's sometimes knowledge about what the subject matter and what the idea that carried this whole concept to become and to be where it is now, that comes last. I mean, who do you know that involved with creative processes that leaves content to the end? Oh, let's deal with the meaning of it all at the end. Everybody find themselves really trying to figure out and be clear about what is the goal, what is the plan. Yes, certain things need a goal oriented and plans and all this, but very few, and most probably you live to be 200 and you will never need to you you won't necessarily find yourself in a situation where you need to define what the goal is, what the course of action is before you can start or before something meaningful can happen. No, that's not going to happen to you, even if you were to live 200 years. What will happen to you on a regular basis is the edges of modernism will knock on your door every day because it's not modernism that wants to introduce to you something with a modernistic feature or something, but rather it's modernism that approaches you because it wants to share with you that it itself is going through a, a fusion with with the with new realizations that are by nature very independent, uh, but for some reason it wants to come together to create a fusion uh, with that which is already kind of pre-established, that which is already understood, that which is already been taken for granted, because it's just there always, no matter what, and it's available, and it's within reach, and it's we're talking about us. One talks about oneself, and we're talking about us, all of us. So usually, if you were to think about people who really have goodwill in place and able to cope with the desires, coping, the ability to cope by way of goodwill of those desires, the willingness to cope with desires. That's how it is, like the cutting edge. that repeats itself all over again, all the time, all the time, all the time. And then, of course, if you know enough about the situation, you will never encounter sweating. Something is sweating, someone is sweating. You, you will never dictate fatigue, not because you're dealing with superhuman beings. It's because you're training the concept itself, attitude in place, allows you and helps you to keep that face expression apropos the circumstances in place and intact, and with the least amount of possibilities for to be compromised, because measures have been taken. It doesn't matter whether the measures need to be taken every time all over again, or whether you just do it once a year and then it's enough for 1,000 occurrences. It doesn't matter really, because you're ready for any scenario. It's good. Why is it good? Because the world will benefit from it. Why is it good? Because the world is benefiting from it as we speak. Why is it good? Because we need goodness in our life. How much can we tolerate anyway? Bad news. Wake up, God, bad news. Live through the day, bad news. Going to sleep, bad news. Nothing. No room for sunshine, for cliche stuff that we don't think of mention worthy. Stuff like we say, like the poem about the bagel. Make it your religion. Wake up every morning, read a poem about a bagel or something. But then you become the poem, you become the bagel, because if I know you well enough, I know that what you're hiding underneath this professional look of yours and professional ability, and indeed your income is two, three, $4, $5 million a year. It's fine, of course. But now we want to start utilizing that which will benefit the world more than anything else that you can do. And even if you're wealthy and influential and you can make things happen and bring changes and help, this is just be nothing compared to one poem you can write that you can really, okay. Like I told my sister, the early stages, 1978. As I told my sister, oh, you want me to write a poem? Okay, I will write two or three of them right now. And I went to my room and came out with three poems. And my sister looked at me and she said, Haim, 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 beautiful poems. Now, I come from a family of poets. My sister that I was just talking to you about, she's a solid poet. She's a solid poet. And then I realized her giving me so many compliments for my first ever. Well, it was actually three poems. It was one poem and two kind of haikus, aphorisms. I didn't know then that it was an aphorism, but it was an aphorism. Anyway, but then I realized the first thing that came to mind, of course, I enjoyed that she's telling me that my first poems are really great. But what I was taken by more than anything is that how honest she was, how open she was, how willing for, I mean, how much willingness to tell you and to share with you the truth, even though it would mean 100% focus on me in this case. She would have to lose herself in the midst of that equation of trying to tell you genuinely, instinctively, how lovely. Because she could have easily said, well, that's a good attempt. That was a good attempt. Keep at it. Try more and you'll get better and better. No, instead, she's amazed. And that taught me that more often than not, most likely than not, that it is impressive. Certain things that you think that's impossible. You need to slave and work hard and show for this, and it's gradual. And indeed, I believe in that too. It's gradual and all that. But sometimes it's nothing of that, nothing of such. Sometimes it's just like pa pam pam, and it's just like wow, solid, firm, accomplished, complete. But 99.99999% people don't ever realize these things, what they're capable, not capable. Things come and go, wonderful breakthroughs and whatnot, and they don't even have a clue that it happened. And it's them. It's what they do. It's their actions that in play that make it possible. So they're responsible for so much, and they know nothing about it. So sometimes it's good for us to take the role of a reminder. Hey, listen, keep at it. Here at LTV, when we have the group art shows, I hardly ever say no to an artist that wants to show his work with us, with group art shows. I find it almost, I don't think it ever happened. It's not like I want to examine your work. And I want to tell you that actually by saying that, I want to tell you that you might not be cut for the deal here. And you might not have what it takes to show for, to be considered, and for me to say yes. No, it doesn't exist. For me, it's like, listen, just your tone of, just your demeanor is telling me a story. And I like that. I like that story. I like you, therefore. I like your work for sure, therefore. Things like that. I don't want to, I don't want to over simplify the process of curation of art and paintings and whatnot, and art history. Uh, of course, we need to give it all the level of seriousness that we can muster to have, and then of course do something about it by way of introducing and interaction and introducing artists to the community, and also in that process being the artist that you are already to work on yourself and to establish and to paint and to create, and then introduce yourself also into the same equation that you so much introduce others. I don't know. It just feels like when I hear myself say that and talk about that, it feels like pretty much something close to perfection. But what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Pretty much misery, sadness. So many entities in the world live their life of misery. And of course, even here in this country, that I still believe, still, I don't even have to say still, because so many people are trying to convince us that the American dream doesn't exist anymore, which is ridiculous, ridiculous. But for me, it's not the American dream as opposed to any other entity's dream. It's the American dreams per se, American dreams. You wake up in the morning, you're capable to reach the world like from end to end, and nobody's going to suddenly give you a knock on your door and take you to jail, or deprive you from this and that. And decency, code of conduct, compassion, structure, coherence, logic, common sense, and then of course being effective, be technically effective. Uh, but what are we talking about? We're talking about, yeah, school shootings and just hatred for the sake of hatred, gang related craziness. Becomes deeply rooted in a part of the culture, so to speak, and so much more by way of the chances of you to find yourself hurt going every which way. But in the same token, of course, of course, this kind of calamity can meet you anywhere, anyhow, any second. It doesn't mean that we jump into the center of the pit of fire and say, let's see what happens, but rather say, but I don't rule it out that maybe one day I would have to jump into the center of that pit. But this is not the time. So prematurely, I don't want to kind of step on my wounds and expedite my process of annihilation, self-annihilation, or annihilation period. But here we're talking about annihilation in the creative process, annihilating that which is up to no good, and call it like energy guzzler. Mm, not allowed to come in, not allowed to visit, and but yes, allowed to eat chocolate, my favorite. Yeah, help me think. Down it with coffee. Delicious. Let's see what the world outside wants from me. Hmm. Okay, let's see. Maybe we can. Really? Okay, let's do that. Maybe I can treat you with a phone call from friends from. Well, in maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should just kind of conclude here. I want also to tell you about my engagement with other artists as I kind of produce and curate and introduce new bodies of work to the community. I'm doing that with Micah Martyr as we speak. Um a 3-day weekend at Ashwa Hall this coming weekend. That means today, the 18th, tomorrow, the 19th, Sunday, the 20th, at Ashwa Hall. Full body of new work by Micah Martyr, which I believe happens to be a really, really very good artist. Okay, very nice, very powerful, very meaningful. So opening reception is tomorrow, uh, October 19th, year 2024, between 4 and 8 at Ashwa Hall. And here, of course, and then this particular show by Michael Marder will come to LTV for a duration of 3 weeks. And then by the end of the first week of November, we're starting with a 5 artist display. I can't wait to engage and indeed continue with our journey of portraying artists from all over the place. And we're very happy to do it. This is our 27th, 28th years and we changed the lights in the corridors of LTV to be somewhat compatible with art, track lights, and so. And I think that LTV is doing sacred work when it comes to they're so open, so generous, so flexible, and this is a part of what I mean by giving. I don't even want to say back, but giving to society, giving to community, um, and um, and then of course the results are pretty obvious and evident. Come to LTV, you see for yourself, and hopefully at some point you will, whether through one of the performances here, theater, of music, or in so much more, or the art openings here, and also just to observe the art Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, here at LTV in Wainscott, New York. So I just wanted to kind of conclude, if at all I can remember what I said for 50 minutes, 50. Um, So I'm going back to Steve Siddering, my mentor. She passed away 15 years ago, so very young, but so powerful, so knowledgeable, so gifted. Many people would know who she is, just like Alan Plants was the most incredible poet and most incredible human being. Serving as my mentor, even Claire Hooton, God bless her soul, she was my Tai Chi teacher, and she practiced it and taught it until she was 80 at least. What a wonderful mentor. What a wonderful individual. I can talk to you about these people. So I had the privilege to have people such as Alan Plant, Steve Sedering, Claire Hooden, and then Mark Tuttle, the wonderful jiu-jitsu entity here in our community of East Hampton. The martial artist Mark Tuttle that I know for years is giving to and contributing to our community in ways that you cannot even imagine. You're talking about 4 decades almost. I remember training with him, um, 1990. That's like 35 years ago. And the person is still solid, introducing his craft and his art and making people happy and making people feel like they count on him and they can, and parents send their children to. So, so Mark Tuttle is one of my mentors too. So having all that as a package of guaranteeing coherence and level of sobriety and maintaining that chill and cool in that boiling center that usually just rocks the ship and you feel like somewhat stable and you can think while intense things are happening and you can look back and see the deposits of that which you learned and gathered along the years directly through these encounters with mentors, if you're lucky enough to have as many as I did. And also there was Kenwood Denard, a world-renowned drummer that I took lessons with in the year 1984 in Spanish Harlem. I did 8 months worth of weekly lessons with Kenwood Denard. I mean, this guy played with the Bill Evans Orchestra and Sweet Basil for years. He was the drummer for Bush Rock with Richard T. and I mean, mind blowing trio. Uh, a progressive drummer that plays keyboards with drums and is second to none. I mean, very, very known. So learning from him as a mentor, like he used to say, well, did you understand what I just said? And I said, yes. And then he would look at me and probably think, no, he didn't understand. And probably he was right. Yeah. So, and then he would follow and say, don't you dare ask me questions after it's all over. When it's over, it's over. And I used to look at him and I said, what's with this person? What is he talking about? This is just giving you an example how something that we think is ridiculous is actually not ridiculous at all. Don't bother me with your questions. Well, he didn't say that exactly, but he said it. And he knew that he was telling me something that I will understand that indeed what he wants to communicate is don't bother me with your questions. If you were to choose the other words to explain that, yeah. So so then I learned about the individual and I say he's so intense and he looks at me and said, who is this friggin' young guy that nothing to write home about doing in my studio? I'm the one of the greatest drummers in the world. And what does he want from me? What is he doing here? Well, of course, okay. I paid for the lesson. I'm there. I'm just guessing that indeed that's how he felt. But most probably he did. He didn't want me or anybody else there. He wanted to just follow his greatness and improve it every day. Anyway, but he did give me. I kept on keeping the status quo of that reality because I knew that what I was gaining just from spending an hour and a half with him every week was too too much to bear. This is 1983, 84 in Spanish Harlem in the studio of one of the greatest drummers in the world. So that's a mentor. That's someone to look back to and to have present in your life. And then you say, well, of course, I need to thank him. My community need to thank him. Your community need to thank you just as much as what I said now about myself. Your teachers that influenced you in your life, our community need to thank them because we see you as that individual that's there willing and capable. But we're running out of time. So let's just say we're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday and as much as we here this Friday morning, October 18th, year 2024, here with the Hello Hello Show. God bless. Keep up the good spirits. We know you're out there doing the best that you can, and we appreciate that. And we'll see you very soon.